What's up, everybody? Alex here from Columbus. Welcome back to another iteration of What's on Tap. This is episode number 14, a series of videos that I put together typically at the end of a work week where I crack open a beer and talk about records because the name of the channel is Beer and Vinyl, and apparently that's what we do. Today we're going local. I start with the beer first, then I got a bunch of records to talk about. But we're going local today with a brewery out of Columbus, Ohio, where I am, called Derive. Now, I've been to Derive a number of times, specifically have indulged in their hazy IPAs. Solid hazy IPA situation going on over there, but I've not really dabbled in other stuff. And I saw this and it just looked a little fascinating, especially for kind of the beer snob. So this is called Hovercraft. Kind of a ridiculous album cover, can art here. It's called Hovercraft, a farmhouse pale ale brewed with Nelson Sauvin, Mosaic, and Riwaka hops. Hovercraft. There is your can art. Not really a commercial description other than that. But what got me was this idea of a farmhouse pale ale. So this is getting a little bit more into like the nitty gritty of the beer world, but a farmhouse ale, similar to that of like a Saison, is something that's sometimes can be regionally bound, stuff out of like, the regions of France and all those different other things. But for the layman's, at least people here in Columbus, Ohio, a farmhouse ale is something that the farmhouse aspect means it's a very sort of natural, earthly given ale. It will elicit flavors of, people throw out words like horsehair and grass and earth, maybe a little bit of funk, like, that type of stuff. So it's not as funky as like, a sour might be. But it definitely lends, sorry, I thought this was going to blow up on me. It definitely lends some funkier elements that are, again, because I think it's a yeast thing actually that kind of gives it that sort of vibe. But then you compare it with a pale ale. So just because it's Derived and what they do, I think this is probably going to be a little bit hazy. Not too bitter, not too hoppy, because again, it's just a pale ale, not an India pale ale. And the farmhouse sort of vibe should give it that added layer of, nature. It's going to take like the earth. It might have a little bit of funk to it, all that type of stuff. So let's give her a pour and see what we got. Well, definitely. Actually, this is pretty much looking the part how it's supposed to. So it's hazy, but farmhouse ales and saisons typically are a lot lighter in color like this. This does not look like, orange juice, or it's not that dark. It's even a little bit brighter here, not on camera. Look at that, perfect pour, good head. That smells fucking delicious. There's a good hop character to that. It smells juicy, it smells fruity. But there is that underlying, again, farmhouse ale sort of earthiness to it. A little bit of that barnyard shit. It's a cool balance. Usually those things don't blend. And that's why it kind of stuck out to me as fascinating. But it smells great. Let's get into it. Happy Friday, Friday the 13th. What's on tap? Let's go. Ooh. Mega dry. Mega dry. Which is leans more of the farmhouse style there. But that is a cool beer. Man, that's dry. I mean, that's like licking wood type shit. You know what I'm talking about. Super dry in the palate. It just like, as soon as you swallow, it just like feels like it just like rips everything straight from the tongue. It just leaves it dry. But the flavor is great. I mean, that's a really cool kind of combination, again, of exactly what they're going for. That's a fascinating beer. I won't talk too much on it because I'm trying to limit how much I talk about the beer. But that's fantastic. Derive, you're doing some good shit, my friends. You're making Columbus proud. I love that. Amazing. I didn't say 5.5% alcohol, so kind of, right in the middle, but I'm all in, man. This is great. It just completely like leaves the desert on the palate. That is kind of wild. How that is one of the driest beers I've ever had. And it's all gone. Amazing. All right, listen, let's get into some records. All right, thanks for indulging me in that. Listen, this week we lost a couple of legends. There's been a lot of tribute videos out there. There's been a lot of those different things out there. People have said some great words and shared some great memories and experiences and all that kind of stuff. And I figure we're going to start there. I'll move that little fucking thing. If we're going to start there, earlier in the week, we lost the great Sylvester Stewart, better known as Sly Stone. I mean, what a obviously musically, artistically, but culturally significant person. You know, I don't think people realize. I don't think people realize the importance of the late 60s having a band that not only blended genres of funk and psych and rock and R&B and all this type of stuff and soul, but blended race, blended gender. I mean, it really was a family affair and something like that, far above and away of the music was so important at the time. And that being said, there's some great albums. I was checking, I was like, how many Sly Stone albums do I have? And kind of embarrassingly enough, I do have Stand, which is amazing, arguably, their best. Kind of wish I had There's a Riot Going On, just based on where we're at in the world today with World War III on our hands, which should be a hilarious time. But then I do think, arguably one of the best comps or greatest hits, man. I mean, Sly and the Family Stone greatest hits. This is like a must-have, right? Like this is like if I'm a collector, if I'm getting into records and I don't know where to start and I don't have a ton of money, I don't have a ton of space, this is a really great greatest hits record. That's great for obviously for you to enjoy. If you got company over, whatever that is, it's just a great kind of comp. So that's it. I would like to get more Sly Stone in my life, but I want to pay a little bit of a tribute to him by showing those records, and I might have to spin those soon. Now, the other monster that we lost, of course, was the brilliant Brian Wilson. And I am a Beach Boys fan. I'm a huge Brian Wilson fan. I'm one of the people that calls Brian Wilson a musical genius. And to me, I can't name more than 3 musical geniuses ever. So like he's on like a Mount Rushmore of Mount Rushmores. But obviously, with Brian, is everybody is showing, and as they should, Pet Sounds, right? I mean, the importance and significance of this record is cannot be overstated. It's amazing. I did not even care about Brian Wilson or the Beach Boys until I saw Love and Mercy in the theaters back in 2015. I remember I was in grad school, and it was over the summer of 2015. I was in grad school out in Palo Alto. I was doing some work out at Stanford, and this was showing at one of the local theaters. And I was like, why not? It looks fun. Great cast, right? I mean, it was an amazing cast. And it blew me away. I went to go see it, and the very, very next day, I went to go see it again. It was amazing. From then, I was a Brian Wilson fanatic. And obviously, with all the tributes and all the things that I've said, everything has been said. But, for me, I guess what my angle is with showing this is, yes, right? Like, this is the masterwork. This is the amazing, amazing record that everybody needs to have. It's one of the greatest of all time. You could argue it's the most influential record of all time. All those different things. But sometimes when we show so much of that record, we forget some of the other stuff. Before Pet Sounds, I mean, you could really argue that this was the real start. Beach Boys today. I mean, not the real start. Like, I mean, they had the Cars and the girls songs and all those different things. But this, I guess, technically was sort of a concept record. It's got some different sort of there's like a radio thing on here with the Bull Session, a Big Daddy, all this kind of stuff. But to me, this was like the transition of like, we are moving from like, fucking around on surfboards and, on top of cars, bumping uglies and shit to like, we're actually going to be some good songwriters and put together a great record. As important and amazing as Pet Sounds is, I think it really does kind of start here. And then obviously Pet Sounds would come shortly thereafter. But even after that, I do have, I think this is a record that, when I say it's right up there with Pet Sounds, if Pet Sounds is like a 10 or so, this might be an 8 or a 9, but I think it's an incredible record, and that's Surf's Up with the creepy, weird cover, man. I love, who would have thought this was like a Beach Boys cover? A very different record. It's got the classic track Feel Flows on here, which they pulled out of, not pulled out of, but Almost Famous uses brilliantly at the end, which was the first time I think I heard that song. But kind of just an amazing, really leaning into this sort of like psychedelic pop sort of thing. It's some great stuff. Surf's Up is an amazing, amazing record. And from there, I mean, I'm also a fan of, let's see, I got this as sort of like one of the, it's a twofer, Friends as well as Smiley Smile, that are kind of, was released kind of as a twofer comp back in the day. The show that I gave, look at that thing. But yeah, obviously Smile and the Smile Sessions and the Smiley Smile, like all those different things that were supposed to be going on after Pet Sounds, whatever. But this is a cool twofer. I mean, in terms of twofers, Friends and Smiley Smile, great stuff. And then kind of my dark horse pick, I don't know if you want to call it that. I think this is a brilliant record. And again, stylistically, it's kind of my thing, but I'm a big fan of Holland. I really like this record a lot. This has got some of those like kind of sweets moving on. It's got the Holland Suite, I think. But yeah, just a cool record, So I think it's difficult because I really don't care at all or get into the early Beach Boys stuff. I kind of look at them similar. People might, get cranky with me, but like I look at early Beach Boys stuff the same way I look at early like Beatles stuff. Like I rarely listen to those first 4 Beatles records. Just because it's not really, I just don't connect with it. It's not my thing. Brilliant for what it was at the time, great, cool. But similar to the Beach Boys, like I don't listen to that early stuff. But give me from that time period of like 65 to like 72, we're doing some work. So all in on it. So of course, Rest in Paradise, Brian Wilson and Sylvester Stewart, Sly Stone. Lost of 2 huge giants. So cheers to them. Man, that's dry. Whew. It builds too as it warms up. It's got a kind of a dank, bitter backbone too on that dryness. It's cool. If you haven't seen Love and Mercy, go see Love and Mercy. It's streaming everywhere, I think, probably now. It is an exceptional movie. Go see it. So let's just get into some of the shit I've been listening to this week. Here's my jazz pick of the week. The Cooker from Lee Morgan. Lee Morgan was probably the first, of course, when you're getting into jazz, everybody's going to tell you Miles Davis, and they're right. A lot of people tell you John Coltrane, all that type of stuff, but when it comes to trumpeters, right, it's like Miles Davis. Lee Morgan was kind of like the first one after that. That was like, I really, really started connecting with his stuff. The Cooker came out in 1958. I believe this was his first record of mostly original compositions. He was 19 at the time of recording this, which you listen to this and him ripping at 19, pretty wild. Another great highlight of this record, it sits firmly in that bebop era, but Pepper Adams on baritone sax just adds such a cool layer. You don't hear a lot of baritone sax, but it's great. Bobby Timmons, Paul Chambers, Philly Joe Jones rounds it out. It's an amazing lineup. This was a Blue Note Tone Poet release. Show the gatefold, get the crackle. Oh. Sorry, just squirted. Anyway, great stuff. Again, if you're interested in jazz, trying to tiptoe into it, not sure where to go, what to do, I'm a huge Lee Morgan fan. I don't think you could go wrong with Lee Morgan. A couple weeks ago, I did a Zappa ranking on Pat over at Close to the Edge Prague channel with Larry, the Canadian Stuff Muffin, and Glenn Kellaway from the Basement. And I think it might have been Larry, maybe one other person, I forget. But in their top 10 Zappa records, they threw in this Zappa record, You Are What You Is, 1981. So maybe a little bit past the heyday, depending on what you define the heyday. My sweet spot for Zappa is like 69 to 76. But this was a double record. Of course, this stars, some classic personnel like Ray White, Ike Willis, so forth and so on, but also has Steve Vai on here, who's a full member of a band, not just the transcriber. But double album that is probably musically the most diverse for an album of Frank Zappa's. He's got, he's got the Zappa comedy on here. He's got some jazz fusion on here. He's got some country. He's got some doo-wop, like way back from Reuben and the Jets type stuff. He's got pop, there's like soul, there's rockabilly. I mean, there is literally everything on this record. Of course, Harder Than Your Husband, what a banger that is. Theme from the third movement of Sinister Footwear. I think that's like the jazz track on here. There's just some great stuff. You Are What You Is the title track, which is an interesting tune in itself. But yeah, You Are What You Is from 1981. Not talked about as much. I don't know if it cracks my top 10, but I do have a little bit more of an appreciation for it after spinning it back again. Yeah. Speaking of having some more appreciation for it, kind of, let's talk about The Boss in 1980s, The River. I don't know how you all are, maybe because we're like nerdy collectors and we like the deep cuts, all those different things. I really, really, really love this record, and I love most of the songs on here, if not all the songs, except, of course, the big fucking hit. I kind of forgot that Hungry Heart was on here. Now, if you like Hungry Heart, this is not judgment on you. Like, just because I don't like it doesn't mean that you can't or you're wrong. Like, I don't like olives. I don't think you're a shithead for liking olives, right? So I don't really care for Hungry Heart. I'm sorry. Everything else on here is amazing. Gosh, you just talk about this streak, right? Like I've always said that my favorite Springsteen record is Young, Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. Young, Wild, and Free. Young, Innocent, Wild, Innocent. There it is. But you talk about that span from like there to Born to Run to Darkness on the Edge of Town and to The River. I mean, it is a streak. Once he goes into the 80s, with the exception of Nebraska, I kind of lose track. I don't care for Born in the USA as much, but the point is, this is a great record. And I've kind of forgot, this is a UK pressing for whatever that's worth a reason. No gatefold, which kind of weird having no gatefold double records. Of course, like Hype is like right on there. I thought it was a promo maybe. Anyway, The River, a great record by The Boss. Even if there is Hungry Heart on there, I will forgive it because that's how it goes. This is kind of funny. Excuse me. Oh, beer. I recorded a video a couple days ago on some recent vinyl finds, and I kind of shit the bed on talking about this record. And after I was done recording the video, I went to spin it again. I was like, yeah, you fucked that up. But I'm going to show it again. Aviary from 1979. I said this was like an AOR record. I compared it to like Boston and Foreigner and the Babies and shit like that. And it is not at all. This is as art pop, art rock as you can get. If you are a fan of 10cc, City Boy, throw in some glam like Sweet, some of that early Queen in there. If you like that type of stuff, then you're going to love this. Yeah, I mean, what an album. Somebody mentioned, I forget who it was, mentioned these outfits. I mean, come on, it's kind of hot. I'd do her. Anyway, so yes, I wanted to re-show this because, again, I kind of shit the bed on here. This is art rock, art pop. Again, all those bands I mentioned before. Not necessarily AOR, but hey. Forgive me. I promise we'll get through it, and it's going to be great. Okay, here's one that came up. I talk about this band a lot. 80s heavy metal band that are due for a reunion album next year at some point, but it's Sabotage. And their record, Fight for the Rock. There's a lot of problems with this record. The band, all the fans, the children on the street, pretty much everybody agrees that this is their worst album. And it's tough, too, because it should have been one of their best. I mean, it was their third. They're catching strides with their previous two releases that are absolute bangers. And then they pull off this, like, Iwo Jima looking motherfucker. And here's what's weird. I mean, maybe this is a video idea of, like, wait, you decided to cover that? What? Sabotage. What are you doing? Covering Day After Day by Badfinger. And you all know I love Badfinger. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. Y'all gonna cover a Badfinger track? You're like the heaviest band in the world at this point, and you're gonna cover Day After Day. They also do Wishing Well, which was, I think, a Free song, or an interpretation from a Free song. There's some okay songs on here. Edge of Midnight is a banger. I do like the title track, and I think Red Light Paradise might be the other one. A couple of strong songs, but this is kind of a turd. I remember reading that Atlantic, I think they were on Atlantic at the time, wanted to put a parental advisory on this simply to sell more records. There was nothing parental advisory that was needed. They just wanted to sell more records. So that should tell you how, mediocre that record is. But you're a completist. I need to sabotage stuff. It should be good. It should have been better. Kind of ruined them. But their best came right after it. So I guess that counts for something, right? Let's stick to Ohio. A lot of Ohio going on. And I'm good with that. And a band that I don't see a lot of people talking about, but they're a cool band for sure. All the way from Youngstown. Glass Harp. Of course, led by the great Phil Keaggy, who this would be their last album at the time. This came out in 1971. They would not release another record, I believe, until 2004, something like that. Phil Keaggy had like a Born Again, Found Christ, all that type of stuff. We love that for him, love that journey. And did a lot of like Christian and guitar music stuff. I mean, he is a sick player. He's an outstanding player. Glass Harp was and is a really cool band. Those first 3 records, or their only 3, are fantastic. I don't really know how to place them because there's this big pop sensibility. You could tell that they were huge Beatles fans. I mean, just great harmonies going on, great pop sensibilities. But there's also this element of musicianship. They were a trio. I think their bassist plays flute. And so it kind of has some of these progressive elements kind of hidden behind a lot of just really great songwriting. So Glass Harp, really cool band. This is It Makes Me Glad, their third from 1971. And and that leads us into what's on tap for tonight. As you know, I like to kind of do like a what's on tap for the evening for records. Fridays, I like to play live music. And it was hot this week. It's hot right now. It's humid. And so I'm like, 2 things. It's like, I don't know. What is the music I would put on to like make me feel like you could like bring the heat? I know I'm doing a terrible job explaining this, but something where the weather fits what I want to listen to. I thought, you know what? You have not listened to this in a long time. This is one of these bands that I'm good with what I have. I have 1 record from them. It's the live record, and I'm good with that. No disrespect. This is just when I listen to this band, it's what I want to listen to. But it's the Outlaws, man. Bring It Back Alive. That's a terrible name for a live album. Bring It Back Alive from 1978. Southern rock, all that type of stuff. Twin, I think they actually had 3 guitar players going on. Pretty sick. This record is kind of known because the last track on here is a 20-minute version, a side-long version of Green Grass and High Tides. And what an absolute smoke show of a song that is. So I figured, you know what? Outlaws, they're on fire. It's on fire outside. The world's on fucking fire. Let's turn it up a little bit and get some scuttlebutt going and drinking some beers. That sounds good. But then I also thought, what a way to start, and how are we going to finish? If I got the time for it. It is also, at the time of recording this, Friday the 13th. Whatever that means, maybe I'll throw on a horror movie or something that could be fun. But I started thinking, what's a live album that's just kind of spooky? And then without thinking too much, I decided, you know what? I'm going back to Opeth, man. The Roundhouse Tapes. That was sort of their wink wink at Soundhouse Tapes from Iron Maiden. This was recorded back during the Ghost Reveries tour. You could argue their prime, depending on who you are. I think that is the best sort of time that you could have seen them. It's Swedish progressive death metal, man, and it's 3 LPs: The Night in the Silent Water, Demon of the Fall, Blackwater Park. I think it's an 18-minute version of that. Ghost of Perdition, which was just a banger off of the Ghost Reveries. Face of Melinda. I mean, it's just this is such a powerhouse of a record. But let's talk about that. I mean, that is as scary and creepy as it gets. I just love that shit so much. I think Travis Smith might be the artist. I might have fucked that up. Great stuff. Of course, the gatefold here also is looking pretty nasty. So, yeah. We're into it. A little bit of Outlaws, some Southern rock, chicken fried shit. Then we get into some Swedish progressive death metal. That's what we do here. I'm going to keep drinking beers, keep making bad jokes, and keep pretending that the world is better than it is right now. Appreciate you all watching. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.